Welcome to growthtofreedom.com, the show that brings you inspiration, transformation, and leadership. We're helping you connect the dots, see the blind spots, and get unstuck so you can go out and grow your sales, grow your impact, grow your profitability. More importantly, so you can have a bigger impact, have a bigger reach, and make a bigger contribution. Is that what you want? If that's what you want, you are going to love today's guest segment. I've got a few friends with us here today, some people who've worked with us in our program, a guest expert who's become a good friend of mine over the last few years. And if you're looking for a way to grow your impact, grow your sales, online, offline, work with proven strategies that can help you grow your business with a lot less stress, a lot less drama, you're going to love today. And if you're not looking for those things, well, you might just get entertained. But if you're not looking to be entertained or learn how to grow your business, you might want to go watch something else or listen to something else. So I'll give you a second to decide. Boom, there we go. All right. So by the way, thanks for being part of our show today. By the way, if you want to come back to this episode, you can do that at growthtofreedom.com /subscribe. That's growthtofreedom.com /subscribe if you never want to miss an episode. Let me tell you about our guest expert today, and then I've got some other amazing people that you'll get a chance to hear from as well. His name is Nate Slade, and Nate is someone I got a chance to meet. I don't know, Nate, how long is it? Was it like 6 years ago, 7 years ago?
5, 6 years ago.
Yeah, so about 5 or 6 years ago, and I'm not going to spoil the story yet, but Nate and I met where I was helping a company grow, and Nate walked in, and then Nate decided to take what we shared with him and go run really hard, really fast. Since that time, he's built a couple e-commerce businesses. He's on the verge of selling a business. He's built and worked and owned a business in real estate, does real estate investing. And he's just you ever met somebody who is insatiably curious, who is hyper-growth focused, yet also was very conscious of like how he was living and showing up for his family, for his wife, for his kids, right? And being there for others. Well, this is the kind of person that you're going to hear from today. And that's what I appreciate most about him is his lifestyle is integrated. It's not separate. He's not giving his family's leftovers. He's living his life with his family and building a great business and building a great impact at the same time. So Nate, welcome, brother. How are you?
Good. Thank you. It's quite the intro.
Well, you're welcome.
But I'm happy to be here.
You deserve it. So I want to dive right into a couple quick things. Like you have a couple businesses today. I'm curious, can you share with everybody, like, why are you doing what you're doing today? Like, why are you pursuing like e-com and real estate and all these different things that you do?
So e-com, originally the idea behind e-com was I'm a little introverted in some ways. And so it was a way that
a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Told a lot of ways.
And so it was a way that I could have a lot of reach without having to deal with a lot of people face to face. But since then, it's morphed into more than that. I've realized I really enjoy the product development side. I like looking at feedback from the market and seeing what they're complaining about or what they're loving and seeing if I can make it better. So it's turned into it's a lot of fun. Like today, my business partner and I are prototyping 2021's products, and we're just going to Ace Hardware, Home Depot, grabbing stuff and throwing it together. It's a fun, I love it. I love the creative cycle on it. So yeah.
That's amazing. Now, how about we start with the story of how we met? Do you want to share a couple layers of this? Because I think there's just a lot of wisdom in it. I hope my kids will listen to this episode at some point because I just appreciate the place you came from. And then just watching and observing where you've gone since we initially met has just been just mind-boggling. It's staggering. I feel like a proud dad in a lot of ways. That might sound really corny, but like I just do.
Yeah.
So share the story of like, when you walked in our office, why then you did research and why you kind of stuck around and like what you offered and then what you felt you learned that were some of the critical pieces that have kind of set you on the track that you are now.
Yeah. So I had started a handful of businesses before and they all just didn't work. And I systematically was solving things at first. I thought it was the finance. So anyway, I spent a lot of time on that and finally came down to marketing. I didn't have repeatable reliable marketing, and that's why they kept failing. And so at the time, I was a project manager for a real estate company, and I just started networking around to find what companies were known in the Phoenix Valley for marketing. And the one that you referenced before came up several times, and so I walked in and then I was like, hey, I know you don't have a job posting listed, but I'm going to work for you. What can I do? And you interviewed me, and it was like, well, do you do graphic design? I was like, no. Do you know how to do sales copy? I don't even know what that is. And the answers were just no, 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 no. And then at the end, I was like, well, I know how to manage teams because I do that to build homes. But whatever you need done, I'll just do it because I want to learn this, and I'll do it for free. And Dan was like, well, we'll pay you. So luckily he gave me a spot, and I absorbed as much as I possibly could. They had this library that was available of all these different marketing books and courses, and it was just, they said it was free game to employees, and that was a wealth of knowledge that I loved going through at the time. So anyway, that was kind of how I got started with Dan, kind of forced my way into an employee position. And then, yeah, he kind of took me under his wing, and I remember we went out to lunches quite often, and I would just, for lack of a better word, just pick his brain. Be like, well, what would you do in this situation? Why are we doing it this way? And just very inquisitive. And I worked there for 2 years, and then decided to take the leap and go back at it on my own, and jumped in the e-commerce world, and here I am. So
that it's amazing. And the indirect byproduct of this, we obviously have to thank Joe and Genius Network and the community that was there that even happened, right? Mm-hmm. And give credit where credit is due, because at that time Joe was a client of ours, Genius Network was a client of ours, and so I was working in this role with Joe as their outsourced CEO. That I was in this role to then kind of be a filter. And the thing that stuck out for me from Nate at a lot of levels, like if you want to get yourself in front of people, ask all the time, Nate, like, and you and I've talked about this at our lunches and our conversation. We'll have to share the story of going to Infusionsoft, if you remember that situation, and then meeting Paul, one of the other people that I had a chance to work with, and that experience. But there's only so much time that we could share here. But like, one of the ways that I've met a lot of high-profile people is I find a way to get myself in, even if it means offering to pay for it in advance. Like even today, some of my good friends, I'll call them and say, hey, I could use some advice. Hey, I'll pay you. I just had this happen yesterday with some things related to some financial stuff that I wanted reviewed, and I didn't want it reviewed in a month or 3 weeks. I needed it reviewed like in 24 hours. So I called up one of my friends in finance, and I said, hey, I really could use some advice. There's some technical terms here, just frankly, I don't know, and I'm uncomfortable responding to these things or even making decisions on them, but I know you know this far better than I do. I'll pay you X dollars, like $1,000 for your hour of time to sit with me for 15 minutes or an hour if it takes a full hour. And guess what he said? Oh, no, you don't have to do that. But I sincerely go in with the intention that if they want it, because I value them, right? And like Nate came in with that kind of a heart space or mind space, that it's one of the fastest, easiest ways to walk in. But a lot of people kind of shy away from it because they're afraid, like, well, what if they say yes? Well, if you don't plan on doing it, don't do it, because you shouldn't, right? But what you'll find is some of the highest level people in the world, if you come at it with the right approach, they will be open to work with you, right? And for Nate, that was kind of his approach, right? In his own way, like, I'll work for you guys for free. And then we had to say, well, we'd love you to work for free, but legally, I don't think we can have you work for free, right? And so, that one step led to another. Now, what would you say are a couple that, there's so much, obviously, we can't cover it, and just, kind of want to give a high level answer here, Nate. What were some of the biggest things that you think you learned? You went from not really, being up on marketing to then learning marketing, and then what things would you say have like opened the door? How has understanding marketing at such super scientific level of application that you do now, implementation. Well, how did marketing change your business world?
Yeah, there's a lot to pick from. So probably what I would say is before working there, marketing was business cards, brochures, and a fancy looking, what it was all just fluffy. And what I learned was, no, it's data driven. It's scientific. I mean, you can make decisions very quickly as long as you have enough responses to a certain marketing piece. Then you can adjust from there and you can optimize. And that optimization never ends. Like there's no end. And so having the right mindset towards marketing of this is a life pursuit, I think was helpful, because it was, like I said, business cards, check, done. And then my marketing's done. Oh, it's not working, oh, I'm going to spend all this money for a newspaper ad, which newspaper ads can be very successful if done well, but I had no idea how to do them well before. So I don't know if that answers your question. I'd say that it's data-driven and can be optimized.
Yeah, and if I heard you correctly, it's also like a lifetime commitment. It's not a tactic. It's not even a strategy. It's like a principle. It's like oxygen. Like marketing is oxygen, right? And it's got to be in place, or you're not going to succeed. Especially as a small business owner. I think you called it the life pursuit.
Yeah, and another thing, a lot of times, and I did this before, there was like, what's the marketing budget? And you would like attach a number to that. And now I know that's not how you should view marketing. I mean, if it's profitable, everything should be going into that to scale that as high as you possibly can. So it's just a little bit of a mind shift of how to treat it.
Yes. Now, speaking of mind shift around marketing, and again, there's so much, but I want to try, to make this very usable and very quick, and then we're going to get into some of these questions right away, is what would you say would be, knowing what you know now, what would you say would be 3 critical marketing decisions you have made that have been game changing for you? Like they've been the biggest breakthrough, the biggest needle mover, the biggest 1 domino or 2 dominoes or 3 dominoes, like the 3 biggest things that, have been game changing for you in the last, 6 months or a year, and possibly that, man, you wish you would have put those in place like immediately because they've been such a game changer. What would you describe as a couple of those?
Looking at the short time frame that you said, connecting with the customer in an educational way is probably the number one. Primarily we sell physical products on Amazon, and so with Amazon you do not get any customer information. I mean, even now they block names, addresses, they're shielding everything. And so how do you go from being just a faceless product company to a person that they can actually connect with? Creating strategies around that has been pivotal. The second one would be once you maximize one marketing tool, move into the next one. You might think, oh, I've maxed out my potential in this product, when in reality maybe you've maxed out the potential of that one marketing piece, and there are dozens and dozens of other marketing pieces that will also pull well for you. For example, we were running Facebook ads and they were performing quite well for us, and then we maxed out the budgets and we kind of saw a plateau there. And so for a long time, that was it. We just stopped there because we thought that was kind of as far as it could go. And then we were like, why aren't we using YouTube? I mean, we're doing videos. So we did, and a whole new flow of sales comes through. So, I mean, if I had more time in the summer, because we sell summer products, I would be going to Pinterest, I'd be going to Twitter, I'd be going to all the different platforms because there's just more reach. So
now, what would
anyway.
you say, because, there's this propensity for some people to dabble in all kinds of things instead of mastering one. You know what I'm talking about? Right? Which, people get fascinated. Oh, Pinterest, YouTube, Facebook,
Maybe
let me go try
wet.
them all. And then they suck at them all
Yep.
instead of mastering one thing. So speak to that a little bit, and the importance of focusing on one first, get it to work, and then diversify.
Yeah, I guess I have this own little rule in my head. I call it the plateau. I pick one and I become proficient at it until I see a plateau. So if it's climbing, I stay with it because there's more to be learned, there's more to gain, and so I stick with it until that plateau happens. Then I continue to work on it, and if I can't change that plateau, then I go to the next thing. For that reason, because I think if you try to do too many, you get fractured focus and you just don't get any progress. So.
Yeah, such good advice. Now, you brought up the idea of connecting with customers in educational ways, and you put some strategies that are pivotal in place. What are a couple of those strategies?
So with going back to the Amazon example, you're really limited on what marketing you can put in front of them, right? You've got your listing, so you got your images, maybe a video if you're brand registered and they allow you to put a video on there. But even that video is highly monitored, and so what you can put it in is regulated. And then the email system they have set up is very regulated. So what we did is, rather than just doing a typical insert where it's just like, hey, if you love us, leave us a review, whatever. We created our product in a way that kind of forced, how do you say this?
Engagement?
Setup instructions. It forced, there was human involvement to use it. And we could have designed it differently, actually, more simply, to where the instructions aren't necessary. But we decided to make it in a way that instructions were necessary, we kind of call it the IKEA effect, where assembly is required. And so then on there we said, hey, we've made a video to walk you through this. You just text this code and it comes straight to your phone while you're setting it up. And we have just shy of 95% text-in rate to the sales. And so in that video, that's not monitored by Amazon. And so we do the instructions like they're expecting, but then at the end, it gives us a great opportunity to talk about our other products and, cross-sell, do whatever we want to do. And we change those videos periodically where maybe we're trying to build an email list. So we offer them to extend their warranty. They can go to this website, enter their information. They can extend their warranty there. Once we felt like that was a big enough list, because at a point it got to where we didn't need it to be that big, then we can change the focus of that video. So it kind of becomes a multi-use tool at that point. So, and another cool thing is after the video, we put a 1 hour delay text message where we're like, hey, how did it go? How did the setup go? And the interesting thing is we were able to capture people at the height of their emotion, which is key in marketing. They were either elated because it worked out great and their kids were loving it. We sell toys, summer toys. Or something went wrong and the kids are just disappointed and they're ticked. Very dramatic emotions. And we found out that 1 hour delay was quick enough to capture them before they went to Amazon to leave a negative review. And so we were able to field that concern and solve it before it turned into a negative response. And so it's really helped us with our ratings and our reviews. And so either they were elated and we are able to ask them for a positive review later, or they were ticked off and we were able to fix it and then ask them for a positive review later. And so we gain reviews significantly faster than our competition, and our ratings are quite a bit higher, and I attribute it primarily to that.
This is so good, Nate. You're so brilliant, brother. I just really, really appreciate what you're doing, how you're doing it, the application, the implementation, and then the independence that you've had. And like I said, taking things from other places and moving them into this e-com world.
Yeah, because actually that idea came from like a breakthrough blueprint that you were putting on, and you were talking about, oh, what do they call them? The guides. What are they called?
Consumer guides.
Yeah, the consumer awareness guides. And I was like, how am I going to do that for my products? And we were brainstorming, and then we came up with the idea of, oh, well, you could just slap this sticker. It was that 24-hour free recorded sticker idea. And so anyway, that was the genesis of it. So
I remember that. Yep. Gotta love it. So, and this is another thing to keep in mind. It's also why going back to the well at times can seem counterintuitive. Oh, what am I going to learn? But, you know, you had attended several of these kind of workshops, and it was a workshop later that this idea was, it was the genesis of that idea, even though you'd heard this in other ways before, but the context was different for you to walk out of it with, wow. And I don't know what this has meant for you in leads or upsells, cross-sells, or, you know, options for warranties or building your list, all of these things which are assets, but I imagine it's pretty substantial, yeah?
Yeah, definitely 6 figures and tens of thousands of emails. So yeah, I'd say it's substantial.
That's awesome. Now, as you're listening or watching right now, if you want to punch your question in the chat window or wherever you're seeing this, you could drop us a question. You can send us a question at help@breakthrough3x.com related to your business. We're going to go through some Q&A here. And by the way, if you never want to miss an episode, you can go to growthtofreedom.com/subscribe. That's growthtofreedom.com/subscribe. So Nate, I want to dive into to a couple questions here. So Dr. Christie and her husband have a business called fossilcrates.com, and they run it on Shopify, and they want to launch a subscription business that runs off of a platform called Kajabi, right? Mm-hmm. Do you know of how they would marry the two sites so that they only have one login to work from?
That's definitely a software technology question. I don't have the answer off the top of my head, but it would be contacting their support to figure out how that works. I don't have a better answer for that, but
yeah, find a programmer. That would be my response. You need to find a programmer, and you know, programmers are really smart. If there's a way a programmer can solve the problem. Yeah. And
in fact, you could go to Upwork. There's a lot of really cheap programmers there that could do something like that.
Can we maybe clarify the question?
Yeah, so it's less a technical hurdle as much as it is a sales conception question, which is we have our hardware offerings on the Shopify site itself. It's the retail model. And we want to offer a subscription service to where when you get one of these crates, so you get a cool dinosaur crate, you open it, you've got neat artwork. So there's a huge pack of stuff. You get a bag. It's in our cool, it's just like what we do in the dinosaur field. You open it and you get shark teeth or
that's awesome,
giant dinosaur claws. So that's the physical side, but we want to offer them when they make this to join a subscription service to wherein they would be able to get monthly additional videos or Zoom chats with myself and my paleontologist friends. And that is far better suited on Kajabi than Shopify. So the question really is, when you're offering up a product that is a digital delivery device and it's on a separate platform, is there going to be some pushback or reticence of potential customers when they see they're leaving a site going somewhere else?
Are they named significantly different?
We don't have the name yet. So that's a great point.
I mean,
if it's named close, will they think it's being spoofed? You know, fossil crates and then crates with a Z.
No, I mean, there's a couple different ways you can do it. You can do a subdomain. But
that's what we were looking at, is subdomaining it all up. But from how transparent do we want to be that they're moving to a different site versus, do we let them know, hey, you're going to be moving over to our subscription portion of our website? Or do we just state up front?
Yeah, I mean, when are you communicating this offer? Is it in the crate itself when they get it, or is it at the same time that they buy the crate?
All three. They can buy it separate. It would be in the crate as a flyer, as well as on the website when they go up as a pop-up that offers, hey, would you like to join the subscription?
Gotcha. I don't know, Dan, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, there's a couple things. I think that the first thing is to prove the concept that it sells,
Right.
So my first focus wouldn't be names. It would be like, do we have something that sells? The second thing is then, to your point, a subdomain, if, you can do the subdomains that match, so it could be fossil crates dot, and I'm just going to make this up, fossil crates dot,
membership or whatever.
Shopify, right? So fossil crates dot Shopify.
Mm-hmm.
Then when they go to Kajabi, it's fossil crates. Ideally, it's your main domain name because you can customize on Kajabi versus having like fossilcrates.kajabi, which looks kind of childish. But it's a place to start, right? So I would use subdomains, and then part of it is just marrying the communication, and also as important is security, right? And again, part of this, like I've done a lot of data runs where we were spending a lot of money, 100,000+ a week. And we would make tweaks to domain names, subdomains, and we would see significant lifts in conversion. But to Nate's point a little bit earlier, like making decisions without like the right number of, like somebody that's running a business that's doing like a couple grand a month, for them to get into sophisticated worry or concern about how to set it up, the key is we need proof of concept to have it, significant statistics to then start playing around with the split testing. But as a base, I think for security, if you can match the subdomains, it's just like, let's take this out of context. People all the time comfortably go to YouTube and then go to someone's channel on Facebook and comfortably go to someone's channel on LinkedIn. They're not the same exact name. They're a different brand, but they go to those places nonetheless. Now, is it better if everything is married? Is it better that if you could have fossilcrates.com/Shopify and it looks and feels like your domain? Absolutely. I would imagine you would increase, your conversion. And if there's a way for you to frame it or build it that way or so on, then do it. Most importantly, you want people to know that you have secured sites. There is branding support and recognition throughout. And then really test to make sure that your offer is converting first. And then you can go to another level of sophistication where, there's certain things programmers can do. And I don't know enough about either the two platforms. I do know Kajabi you can customize just like you can do it with a lot of other platforms like this. Shopify I don't know enough about, so I can't really speak to it. But these would be the couple things that I would focus on in the beginning. Brand congruency, and then most importantly, focusing on the offers. And then if you can match subdomains, you can match domain names together somehow. The more you can do those little things, but don't let it stop you.
Well, and here's a quick question. Are you the face? Like, are you the one on all the videos?
Mostly.
Are you on the website that's selling the physical products too?
Yeah.
So, I mean, people's facial recognition, they see you on one site, they see you on the next. I don't know if the name's going to have that big of an impact. Yeah.
Yep.
So I have a follow-up question based on something Dan said previously. So now we've got Shopify. Now we have Kajabi because I already had Kajabi, and we're trying to do this kind of course subscription thing. But do we need a third one? Because trying to build the list, like try to get the people, I had this Zoom thing to set up, and it was like all these iterations, 3 different clicks to try and so that we could capture their emails because of the way Shopify was set up. And then I didn't really know about how Kajabi's was set up. So then it was like, well, do we put them in Kajabi? Do we put them in Shopify? Do we need a third place? Like I'm feeling like I'm stumped every time I'm trying to do a marketing thing because of I don't know, the platforms, or I'm not sure what's the easiest way to be able to try to build the list and try and get the emails and try and do all that. And where do I put them, and which one do I use, or I have to use all of them? I'm not sure.
How many subscribers per month do you have?
So we just
and how many people buy your products per month right now?
Yeah, so we just finished our 3rd month. So our subscription is we're pushing 600 people that have subscribed, and then our buyers are over 100 individual buyers.
Okay.
So
nice. So the good part is you got things that are selling, and again, what I would propose is, like, as you guys scale, you will want to consider some of these. I think it's a little early for you guys to be worrying about a third platform myself right now. It's not that it's not a concern. It is, because it gets sloppy. But until you have, like, you're in full momentum, I ran a business that was doing almost $10 million a year out of Access. It wasn't fancy. Now, I had it integrated, and I had my programmers that integrated it into other stuff. But I ran the dang thing out of Access, which is like one of the, it's just not very robust. But based on the way we set it up and the way I wanted it set up, it did the job for us. And then I spent like $1 million on a software custom platform that we built before we sold. But, like, we did a lot of business without fancy pants setup, right? So
I definitely want to avoid, vanilla is always best, whatever's from the factory. And where we're finding is when we go to send out Zoom, like, we do Zoom meetings with the public. So they're a part of our subscribers, or we'll put it on the website. But in order to gather that information, Zoom wants you to gather it from their platform. And Zoom doesn't have a bolt-on with Kajabi or Shopify that is single sign-on to the registration at this point.
yeah, well, I can share with you. I know that challenge, and there is a way around it.
Okay, that's what I was, yeah.
Yeah, so the way around that for Zoom, for example, is you can set up an opt-in page, and I use this all the time. You set up an opt-in page, and then what happens is you pass the data with Zapier into Zoom behind the scenes. And the other way we do it, because when you add other fields onto a Zoom page, it decreases conversion. So, for example, I have forms for the last 6 months you guys probably have registered on at some point, or at least seen, where we ask for name, email, and first name, email, and phone number. But Zoom, depending on the thing, webinar or meeting, requires last name, right? And if you don't set up the meeting or the webinar the right way, you might have other fields that makes it hard to match. Well, what you can do is have a programmer send a blind field behind the scenes, not to get into too much techie stuff. But again, programmers can solve this, right? So it's a Zapier direct from your form, and it's basically passing the data, and I'm not passing the last name. The way we add the last name is the same as the first name. But it shows up in Zoom, like for example, if you registered, it'd be Christy, and last name Christy, because it's duplicating it automatically behind the scenes. And then it's the email and then the phone number, and that is compliant for Zoom to register, and that's how we get around it and use it to avoid, like, multiple registrations. But let me also share this. I've got another private client who does not like using webinars. He likes this interaction, and he'll put 300-400 people on a webinar like this. And he just prefers this vibe and this interaction. And even though we said there's so many other things you can do with the webinar model, he prefers this. Because there's some nuances inside of the meeting platform, they have to have people double register. It's almost like a double opt-in, right? And he started his event today. His event's going to do $4.2 million in the next 4 days, right? He'll have about 100 people that attend, and then he offers a pretty substantial program. And they'll do about $4 million, but they had to kind of double opt in the way I just described to get on their webinars for the last quarter. So you can do both. Now, his company will do close to 40 million this year, and he's still using a very archaic, clumsy, like, kind of awkward system. But it works. But you can simplify it, right? So again, it's a good example. Don't let technology, guys, get in the way of all of you guys making money or making an impact or making sales. And yeah, is it uncomfortable? Yeah. It's awkward. Yeah. But at the end of the day, can you generate customers? Because if your volume goes up, then you can take a few $1,000 extra and customize some extra fancy pants stuff to get stuff done. Right. Now, by the way, what I just shared, Brian, with the passing of data, an Upwork person could probably do this in about 10 minutes.
Okay.
For, I imagine less than $100, and you could have it permanently solved for all your webinars or meetings going forward.
Awesome.
Cool. Awesome.
Thank you.
All right, next one. Are you guys, by the way, as you're listening right now or watching right now, are you guys learning some good stuff? Awesome. Again, make sure to type your question in the chat window as well. So here's another one. With e-commerce, how many items do you recommend popping up at a checkout?
So I would say Amazon is kind of the golden standard for this because they are just doing so much volume and they're constantly testing. So I would go to, let's just use your product for an example, the fossil crates. Go to anything paleontology related on Amazon and look at their page. How many sponsored type products are they putting up there? How many frequently bought togethers? How many are the, I mean, you'll find there's a lot. And so the frequently bought togethers are anywhere from 2 to 3, but then if you look underneath that, you know, competitive products that are similar to this, you also looked at this, you know, all this type of stuff. And they're just using the images of the products to see if they can nab somebody to dig a little deeper. So hopefully that answers your question. I would model Amazon as close as you could.
Yeah, they have a lot of billion-dollar budgets to test these things. Let's use that for sure.
Right.
Do you recommend investing time creating pop-ups, right? Or meaning customizing, or a one pop-up fits all approach? Example, many of our Marine Marauders add-ons come from Kansas, and Privy allows us to see, oh, you're from Kansas, let's show you the Kansas specimens. This is probably similar to your Amazon answer, but you know, what would you say to that?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of goes back to what we were saying before. You can get really nitty-gritty in your optimizations, and they will increase lift. But in the beginning, just keep it simple. I think if you get too complicated, then there's so many moving parts, you don't know what broke and how to fix it. So I'd say get a solid foundation and then build from there. Just slowly optimize from there.
Yep. Another one. Should our newsletter be split that we give them the offer to subscribe to promos only versus informational newsletters that include a promo code? Right now we have a newsletter that tries to be all things to all readers and includes hardcore dino fan info, spotlight on museums, paleo artists, and show off our products.
So Dan Kennedy, I read a book of him. He's like, every marketing piece needs to have an offer. Now, it doesn't need to be buy. Like, that doesn't have to be the offer. It's just an offer for action to move somebody down the line, however big. It could be a really small move, or it can be a big one. But every marketing piece needs to have some type of movement that can be tracked. And that's what I was getting to before with everything's data-driven, right? And you can optimize and that's how you do those things. So whatever you're offering, make sure that you can see the response. What was the response to that offer? So,
if I can add on to that, so when you have a newsletter, right now we have a spotlight on a dinosaur, and then it's a crate for that dinosaur, and then it's a promo code. If you go and use that promo code, you get an extra claw of a velociraptor. Mm-hmm. However, what my concern is we do offer a lot of dino fan content, but if you're just on there buying something for your grandchild, you just want the promo code. So do we offer a separate newsletter that goes out? Like when you go to subscribe to a newsletter, you pick promos only or promo plus all the information? Or do we just don't worry about it?
I'm going to jump in here, Nate, and give my opinion. What you take a sip of water or think of your version. So my response to that, similar to what Nate brought up just a few minutes ago, is keep it simple. That's number one. So you've got 600 subscribers and 100 buyers. I would look at segmenting this way. Segment to your buyers versus the people who are non-buyers so far. So let's say it's 600 total non-buyers and 100 buyers. You would, and you would just slightly shift about 3 degrees the version that goes to your paid group versus your non-buyers, in my opinion, right? But I would keep it simple, trying to then micro segment. Now, there will come a point as you grow, like you'll send out specific newsletters to openers in your list, and then clickers on your list, and then the buyers, and then inside of the buyers list, the clickers and the openers of that. And so it starts to get exponentially more complex as you go. But for now, what I would recommend is segment your list: buyers, non-buyers, right? And then to Nate's point, make offers as often as you can. So if there's a promo code that can be there, put it in there, and you can do it as a soft offer, like PS, when you're ready, here are a couple options for you. One, here's the promo code. Number two, here's this program or product or service. Number three, here's this product, right? Because I can tell you time and time again, I have friends of mine, and we've all had this happen, I'm sure. I've talked about this more than a couple times, which is, how many times have we all had a situation where a friend of ours, we were talking, they were like, hey, what are you up to now? And you tell them what you're up to, and they were like, oh my gosh, I wish I knew you did that because I'd have bought that from you, but I bought from this person like a month ago. Right? So we in a lot of ways, I forget who I heard this from. I think it was Joe Polish. He says, in a lot of ways, we're like a glorified reminder service. We have to constantly remind our clients and our prospects like what we do and how we do it, because we think we're pestering them in a lot of cases by putting our stuff in front of them. But in reality, people just forget, and it's kind of like that game of telephone. The 10 of us on this line right now, if I whisper a story in Phil's ear and he goes to Carol, goes to Lisa, goes to Sandy, Christy, Brian, Nate, and then Bruce, by the time it gets to Bruce, what happens? It is totally distorted, right? That's how people forget our offers, which is also why sending almost every day is actually a good idea. Now, all of that being said, so number one, keep it simple. If you are going to segment your buyers and your prospects. Slightly different, but again, I don't think you need to overcomplicate it either. Just like 3 degrees, right? Be a reminder service. Then on top of that, I would consider, if you want to, and part of this will be a programming thing, so I say this with hesitancy and an asterisk. When you're ready and you want to get a programmer to do this, they can build something in your system where you can put a message in your email that says, something like this: no longer wish to receive info about this particular offer and campaign? Click here to be removed. So it's not and this is a separate link inside your email. What it does is it creates a tag in most of these systems now, depending on what you use. They might have different terms for it. But instead of them unsubscribing, they will opt out of that message sequence. Like we do this quite a bit with our other private clients, where like when we're sending emails once and twice a day for about 14 to 21 days, we put this little notice in an email, and instead of them unsubscribing, they're just taken out of that campaign. But they don't then miss like what you send out in your normal newsletters a couple times a week, right? So it's just a little email, click here, and that click here is a tag that's in your system, and it puts them in there, so now it just takes them out. So when you mail, you separate and pull them out of the mailing for promotion stuff, right? So that's another thing that you can do to say. I'm getting a little more advanced and probably a little bit more in too far into the weeds, but is this helpful for you guys?
Yes.
Nate, anything else you'd like to add to that?
I think the common theme is you guys have a good start, but I don't think you have enough sales transactions to be optimizing at this point. It's just how do you grow that number first, and then once you have that base grown, then you'll have a lot more data to make decisions on. Because right now it's a guess, whereas with more data, then it can be more factual, if that makes sense. So just a thought.
Thank you.
Let's see. Do you recommend we dedicate resources to affiliate sites, bloggers? Do we offer up infographics to these folks as long as they link back to our site?
So kind of like we were talking about before, there's dozens of platforms that you can get leads from. You kind of have to decide where are your customers, but most likely the answer is going to be Facebook because they're just so massive. And there are so many good courses and coaches like Dan that can really help you nail those ads, because that's where a majority of your buyers are going to be. So nail that first rather than trying to learn the blogosphere and the Instagram influencer sphere, unless through your research you find out, oh, a disproportionate amount of our audience is here. Then master that platform. If really all paleontology lovers are on blogs and blogs only, then yeah, take the time, become an expert.
Yeah. And by the way, with regards to that, if you want to get a good overview of how to go after influencers and even just to hear the psychology on this, I interviewed a good friend of mine, Tom Morks, who's ex-military, probably one of the smartest JV affiliate types in the country. You can go check out that interview on growthtofreedom.com. Just look up Tom Morkus, and you can listen and I believe watch the interview, at least listen, and hear his strategy for how to think about going towards influencers and how similar to what we described in the, like Nate's whole approach of how he came in our world, volunteering first, and then I described buying my way in and wanting to contribute first to people. You'll hear Tom describe how do you do that in this blogosphere world. It's not about asking, it's about giving first. And a lot of times that's a lot of work. So it's like a lot more manual labor than, for example, having to run a Facebook ad, but it is an option, right? If you're willing to do the work. So Tom literally lays out the blueprint he's used to become one of the biggest affiliates in the world, right? Mm-hmm. And it's a really valuable exercise and understanding of how, and little things just matter. Like, for example, one of the things he shares in our interview is that if you are going to go after influencers or want to attract influence, number one, you want to be clear on who that is. So like Nate mentioned, I can't say the word properly, so I'm just going to call it paleo. That's how I'm going to say it, because I'll get tongue-tied otherwise. Paleo. And you go find those lovers, and go find the influencers, right? So you get your list of influencers ahead of time, so that's research. Then you go to them and check out their stuff, and then you start leaving reviews in their stuff, on their podcast, on their blog, first and foremost. And you're giving first, and inevitably, like when I have people who leave comments, I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. I'll just reach out to them or have my team reach out to them and say, hey, thank you for the, thing. What do you need help with?
So along those lines, do I do it as my personal, my PhD work, or do I do it as the company when you're doing those?
People buy from people, in my opinion. So I would be doing it as a person.
Yeah, because those influencers are going to make the decision to promote you based on their trust with your expertise in the space. And so if you lead with your PhD, that's just instant credibility. And then you build that relationship and you make, hey, I actually also have products. I mean, it's a very easy transition.
Okay. Yep.
Okay, good.
Cool.
Thanks.
Does that cover that one for you guys?
Yeah. Thank you.
And again, as you guys are here, type in your questions in the chat window. We want to utilize Nate as much of time as we have. We're going to squeeze the lemon on Nate here too. We're going to keep him here for 3-4 hours.
Oh, geez. All right.
Just kidding. All right. When you do live events like Zoom, how much lead time should we let people know? 1 week, 3 days? What resonates with people to where it isn't so far away that they forget, but not so close that they didn't make time? Open versus registration. What are the best Q&A? Are you doing much in Zoom follow up with your clients, Nate? I can speak to that one.
I'm not, actually, because we sell, like I said, summer products for kids, so we don't typically Zoom with the parents for that type of stuff. So,
got it. All right, so I'll dive in because I got a lot of data on this. Internal databases, 7 days and prior. We just did one. I've got a private client that we're hosting a live Q&A call right now as I'm speaking to you, and we promoted it 3 days before. So anything 7 days before gives a runway, but when you're in the middle of like a launch, which we are with this particular client, we're doing a lot of stuff. So we used a very short 3-day window initially, but 7 days I would say is optimum. Ideally, if you're doing Zoom Q&As, if it's a Zoom webinar, use the platform for what it can do, because you can do like 1 hour before, 3 hours before, 1 day before reminders. Use those reminders inside of Zoom as well if you can. if you do integrate it, like I described earlier, where you got some kind of registration page, on top of that, consider doing text reminders, as long as you've got permission. Also doing a voice broadcast. Those handful of things ups your show up ratios quite a bit. The average, by the way, right now with Zoom webinars is 12% to 15% show up ratios. Part of it does depend on industry. Like Bruce, his show up ratio was like 90% and still is, blows out like the whole, it's a total bell curve thing for him. So
but that's just because it's Bruce.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah. But 12 to 15%. And then if you're integrating some other things like the reminders in email is one, the Zoom reminders do make a difference. It's like a little hidden secret because Zoom reminders sometimes bypass and get into the inbox a little easier. And then text messages and voice broadcast reminders integrated. Now, again, these are tech things. To Nate's point, don't let it get in the way of you actually just doing it. And, oh, I'm going to put off doing, like Bruce didn't have any of this stuff integrated inside in the beginning. These are more advanced techniques and strategies, but they can help. So I do want to point them out. But 7 days before, you're going to be good. Ideally, have some kind of a reminder system in place. Nate, anything you want to add to that?
Just reiterating the text thing. I think a lot of people, email is, they're just getting inundated, so their filters are getting stricter, and there aren't the filters on text. And so, yeah, it's a really solid reminder system.
Yep.
For us, real quick, we were doing the promos on Sunday for Thursday's webinar, and then per your suggestion, Dan, we had the Zoom reminder 1 day before, then 1 hour before, and then I think you even said to do one 15 minutes before, which we started doing, and then I sort of fell off of that, but I think that was really good advice, though.
Well, yeah, I'm doing a strategic partnership with a client. What's tomorrow? Thursday. And so when someone opts in, now, by the way, when you do cold traffic, you can start promoting it. You ideally want to start promoting it if you're using Facebook paid ads about 2 weeks before, because it also allows Facebook to learn and some different optimization things on the stuff. I don't want to get too technical on it. But what we do is when someone opts in, like 2 weeks before, we literally have about 7 days in a row of warm-up. It's still promoting the webinar, but it's warming them up, building rapport, especially if they're cold. And then the 5 days before the webinar, I'll call it the countdown sequence, that it starts 5 days before, and it's every day. And then on the last 24 hours, we do 24 hours before, 12 hours before, 3 hours before, 1 hour before, 15 minutes before, and we're live right now. Jump on. Because people need to be reminded, and they need the links, because there's inevitably, I mean, how many of us have had this? Well, I registered for this webinar. Where's that dang or other word we might use link to jump on the webinar?
That happened today for this.
Yeah.
Oh no, he doesn't have the link in there. And I went back in the past and it wasn't there. And then I went in the forward and I found it. And then I emailed or put it for the rest of them because we were all like, where's the link?
Huh.
And if you can, put the link in the text reminder, because a lot of people have Zoom on their phones. And so even if they're driving, they're like, oh yeah, that's right now. Click, and they're in. Obviously, You don't want them doing it while they're driving, but you get what I'm saying.
Right.
Yes. Yep. All right. How much video content should we include in our product descriptions? Right now, we have images of the fossil cast, and in most cases, no video accompanying it.
Oh man, video is key. I mean, again, going back to what we've been hitting on, simplification is king, but one of the first things that I would up level would be videos. That was the big shifter for us, is when we included the video setup instructions, because they want to get to know you as a person, right? Past the product itself. And it really, with how easy video is now with technology and how easy it is to upload, that's just a good medium to produce.
So is a crummy video better than a great photo?
What
Yes.
do you mean by crummy video?
So I'm a hobby photographer and I can generate some really nice images. My videography skills are subpar. So I'm out there telling stories. I tend to use multisyllabic terminology because I get excited about it. The passion comes through, but also if they don't speak Greek or Latin, they may be a bit off-put. So I prefer to let the photo be the 1,000 words or less. So it's a question of, or do you do both? Do you have photos and videos?
A video is pretty much 60 frames per minute, so that's 60 photos per second.
At crummy pixel size.
I know, but I guess what I'm saying is, if you know that you have a tendency to go deep into the weeds with the technology or the terminology, have somebody there with you when you're filming it that is not deep into it, so that if you say anything that's above their head, they can be like, which means, and then you can expand on that, right? I would say video is worth it. Even if you do go deep, people who are into paleontology are going to like it. Even though they're like, I don't understand that word, but he's really passionate and I like this stuff, so I want to understand that word. Like it, I think you'd be okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Agreed.
Maybe I'll add a glossary at the end.
Could. In fact, I mean, you're going to edit the video, right? So once you record it, show it to somebody who doesn't know and just have them highlight things that they were like, I didn't get that. Then you could, in editing, you could put a pop-up description of what that means. Like, anyway, you can edit the video after the fact. Hopefully you can dumb it down enough to where you don't have to do the editing, because that just slows down the process, but it's possible.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, and don't get too hung up on like fancy pants graphic, kind of similar theme through here. Don't let tech and fancy pants stuff get in the way. Like I've seen more raw videos that have produced millions of dollars than all kinds of overdone, overproduced, over-commercialized videos. So, don't put too much judgment on yourself. Now, if it's in terrible lighting and it's dark and people can't really see you, that's one thing, or you got a terrible background. But don't overdo like, oh, I got to have the perfect background, or I got to have the perfect look, or I got to, say the perfect thing. Here's a real simple formula on most videos, and all of you have this tool, which has the more expanded version, which is the 7 steps in the video generator. You want to hook to a question that your client has that's a problem for them, right? Have you ever dealt with? Are you dealing with? Do you struggle with? Are you suffering from? In most cases, right? Or it could be as simple as, are you wondering? Or did you know? Like in your guys' case with what you guys are doing. So you're hooking to a question that's in their mind related to like a problem that you ideally also solve, or a challenge or an insight. Then you go to, so you hook to that. Then you go to, today you're going to discover. So now you tell them what's in it for them. Like you are going, in today's segment, you are going to discover, and then tell them what is coming, right? 3 steps, 5 steps. I'm going to walk you through, like whatever it is. Just tell them what they get. Now, why is this important to you? So tell them why it's important to them, right? So now you've given them the what, you've given them the why. Now you might go into a story, if you can, right? It could be your story of why. It could be a story of a client. It could be a story of a dinosaur that you got in a wrestling match with. It could be 2 dinosaurs that got in a wrestling match and one versus, but why, right? Or a story that's tied in, right, to kind of demonstrate. And then lastly is the call to action.
Cool.
Right?
That's very helpful.
And again, the more expanded version of that is in one of the tools, the video script generator that we give you guys. So so you can use that one. But that's the short version that, like, you can do 30-second videos with this format.
Yeah.
Right. So ideally you can use that. Last one, Nate, and I'd love to have you just share with people how they can get in touch with you, learn more about you, what you're up to, and any parting advice. But before we do, so this one is, can we email people too much? I find myself unsubscribing if someone hits me even twice in a week unless I really enjoy. What is the right number of email touches? And I certainly have a view on this, but I'd love for you to share.
Yeah, so you're going to assume that everybody on your email list is a 5-star client. I was taught this from Dean Jackson, meaning they want your stuff. They really want your stuff. And communicate with them that way. And the frequency, if you just meet somebody and you really hit it off and you have a good time, if they called you the next day, that wouldn't be off-putting. If they called you the day after that, that wouldn't be off-putting. So I would say the more frequent, the better. Because if there's a long gap, that's when people go cold and their attention is diverted. And so if you're hitting them up too often and they leave, that's fine. They probably weren't a 5-star client anyway. And so you're just kind of trimming your list as you're going along anyway. So, and the comment of, I unsubscribe if they, reach out to me twice, you are definitely not the customer. Just remember that. There's so many things that I look at, I'm like, I would never do that. And then I run the promotion and dozens and hundreds of people do it. I'm like, what in the world? Like, so I am not the customer. You are not the customer. You've got to test the different options and see what works best.
That's perfect advice. I don't even think I could add anything to that. It's just know that if you're not emailing your clients, your competition is. Do you want them to buy from you and be connected to them or to you? I mean, that, at the end of the day, that's what you've got to think about. Every day that goes by that you're not emailing is a day that you're not staying connected. And you're at risk of then getting diverted to your competition where they'll go buy from them. Right? And we're all, by the way, truth be told, I don't email every day. Right? Just for a lot of different reasons. I email a fair amount, but when I had my big media business, I was emailing twice a day. Right? And what I found is every time I emailed, we made more money. That's another interesting thing. Right? You'll have more engagement. And I would encourage you to look at your ROI as not just one layer like return on investment, but look at it this way. And you might want to write this down. It's ROI cubed, which is return on investment. That's the common one everybody's familiar with. Number 2 is return on interaction. Right? There's something to be said about the interaction with you, that there's a lot of value. And again, every day that goes by, there isn't an interaction with you. Again, they're at risk of being diverted to someone else where they're going to get fed an interaction of some kind that maybe moves them away from you, right? To Nate's point, the space. So return on interaction, and the third is the return on implementation, right? What's it costing you if you don't? Well, again, to Nate's point, you're not your client. You're not your customer. You may not do what they would do, but don't prejudge based on what you would do or not do. Base it on how they interact, how it's implemented, and then then you'll start to see your ROI will go up if you mail more. So, all right. So Nate, as we wrap this up, what are a couple action steps that you hope everybody would take from all this amazing wisdom that you've shared with everybody today?
I'd say try and look at what you're selling, your product, whether it's physical or digital in nature, and humanize it a little bit. Put a face to it. It doesn't necessarily have to be your face, but make it more approachable and engage with your customers on like in my example with the setup instructions. I engage with 95% of my customers are seeing my face, and I'm able to talk to them an hour after they set it up, and that has been pivotal for what we're working on. So if you can think of systems that can do that, it will help your business out.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. So what can you take away from this segment as you're listening or watching today? What are the action steps you're going to take? For example, are you going to humanize and personalize the experience with your business? And are you going to do that sooner than later? Are you going to create engagement with your potential clients? Are you going to create interactions with your clients? Are you going to help them get a breakthrough, a transformation, an experience with and from your company? And you, ideally, representing your company. or if you have team members that are also a part of that. Are you prototyping? You know, he brought up a word earlier. We didn't even go much into this, but one of the fascinating things about Nate, if I had to describe Nate, one of the keywords that I would use to describe him is he's constantly prototyping. He's prototyping his life. He's prototyping his products. He's prototyping, you know, he's just testing and, you know, experimenting and testing and experimenting and testing and experimenting. What are you prototyping this week? What are you prototyping for the next quarter? What are you prototyping to get better tomorrow than you are today, right? Are you connecting with your customers in an educational way, right? Education-based marketing, you know, and simulating a physical experience with them. Are you using texting? Are you using voice broadcast where you can? Again, personalizing and humanizing. You know, where can you add other options, other opportunities? You know, Nate brought up the idea of, you know, he kind of slid it in, but I'm not going to let it go on to, but he offers an extended warranty for his services or products as an add-on or a cross-sell, right? Where could you do that? Like, or what is your version of an extended warranty that you could offer that's just a slight offer, but it helps increase the client value and makes the experience deeper, better, or stronger, right? Focus on one marketing tool, right? Up front, master, go deep on that. And then if you hit the plateau, then move over to another, right? You've got to have some statistical significance as far as results before we start over-teching, over-complicating, over-analyzing, over-optimizing things to make it significant. Get a base, get a foundation, and a whole lot more. Nate, I have to tell you, brother, this has been awesome.
Well, thank you.
Been awesome.
It's been a pleasure. It's been fun.
What is something I should have...
You kind of brought it up here at the end, the prototyping piece of it. Kind of tying back to you are not your customer. The more shots you get out there, the more chance you have for some intriguing feedback. There might be something that you just weren't anticipating. Like, for example, in our products, we just prototype something and we'll send it out. We'll get 50 of them. We'll make them in our garage, and they are not finished product quality, right? These are just functional. And then we get them into customers' hands, and we just see what's the response. And it's always surprising what they complain about and what they don't complain about. We had one that was a Bluetooth speaker, and it was a garbage one. We actually had this other speaker sourced. It was 3 times as expensive, and it was going to be, you know, a lot nicer. And when we sent out those first 50 prototypes, the feedback we got was, "Oh, the speaker's great. We love the speaker." So we ended up keeping that speaker, and it saved us a ton of money because we're not the customer. I mean, they identified that was great, but then this other element was poor, so we upgraded that. So you never know what the customer's going to love. So that's what I'd say is prototype early and often, and just be ready for some interesting feedback.
Nate, this has been amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. How would everybody rate the meeting?
Thank you so much.
1 to 10.
10
1 to
plus.
10?
Thank
10
you.
plus?
40.
You guys think we should invite Nate back?
Yes.
Yes.
Guest expert?
Absolutely.
Well,
We love you too, Dan.
What's
Say
that?
what?
We love you too, Dan, but yes.
We want you back as well, Dan.
Hey, Nate, you want a new job? I guarantee you 18 an hour. 18 an hour.
Right? Trade you straight across.
Raise them to $20 an hour.
There you go.
All right, twist my arm. Twist my arm. Nate, that was amazing, brother. And I just have to say it's a pleasure, as always, to be able to connect with you. And as you're listening, as you're watching, right? Again, if you want to come back to this episode, you can do that at growthtofreedom.com/subscribe. That's growthtofreedom.com/subscribe. I encourage you, take action with what Nate has shared with you, right? You don't need a new idea, right? You need a new idea like you need a hole in your head, right? At the end of the day, what matters is implementation. So like, what's one thing that you can take from this and put into action? And oh, by the way, if you like the show, make sure to go rate us on iTunes. If you like the show, go share this with somebody you care about. Share it with somebody you know. Share it with another founder, a CEO, a business owner, entrepreneur as well. And Seize the day. Make it a great week. We'll see you next time on growthtofreedom.com. Bye for now. Thanks for listening to this episode of growthtofreedom.com. Are you struggling to get a steady flow of new clients every day? Or maybe hit a plateau or hit a wall in growing your business? Well, let's help you solve this problem today. Let's review your business and have a conversation. You can do that for free today at breakthroughstrategycall.com. That's breakthroughstrategycall.com. In addition, if you're looking for a simple way to implement some of what we've been talking about in today's episode, then I want to encourage you to get our free small business toolkit. You can get that at activate.breakthrough3x.com. That's activate.breakthrough3x.com. If you'd like access to the special resources and all the show notes for this special episode, make sure to visit growthtofreedom.com.